Well, hello everyone, and my name is Kerry Brown, and welcome to Hang Out with Coach Kerry. I want to, my goal here is to inspire, encourage, and motivate and uplift you. Because most often when you're an entrepreneur, especially a solo entrepreneur, it's pretty lonely out there. You're struggling trying to find answers to how to be successful, how to get all the things done. You're juggling often, many different balls in the air. And so I want this to be your go-to place where you can get the answers that you need. This morning, our topic is how to get endless referrals. And I would like to introduce my panel today, right out of the gate here. So my first panelist is Bonnie Mitchell. Bonnie, introduce yourself and tell people how they can find you.
Hi, Kerry. I'm Bonnie Mitchell. My company is Mitchell Creative. I work with businesses worldwide to help them communicate their services and expertise to those whom they wish to do business. So I do this by creating a complement of marketing material that they will need in order to conduct their business successfully. And I can be found at bonniemitchell.ca.
Great. Thanks, Bonnie. And over to you, Kathy. Kathy, share with our listeners and our audience about yourself. Kathy, you are muted.
Okay, am I live?
You are live now, yes.
So sorry about that. A little techno glitch there. My business is Niche Travel, and what I do is I create wonderful tours for women who love to travel all over the world. Small group boutique tours, and they're very inspiring and wonderful to be on. And women can find me at either www.nichetravel.ca or nichewomenstours.ca.
Great, thanks, Kathy. And really appreciate both of you being on my panelist regularly, and because you asked some great questions that I think a lot of our audience would really like to know as well. So today's topic is how to create an endless stream of referrals. Now, episode 15 talked about networking strategies, and part of getting an endless stream of referrals is making sure that you have a huge contact list. Now, when I say huge, I'm not talking necessarily thousands, but you do need a contact list of people that know, like, and trust you. And one of the first places to meet those people, meet those ideal people, is at networking events. So please go back to episode 15 and watch that, because it'll give you some great tips on how to be able to do that, and some strategies that I've learned over the years and working with hundreds and hundreds of coaching clients. I've been a business coach now for 16 years, and I would say to you that if I asked every single business owner, would they like to have their business solely built on referrals, their answer would be yes. And panelists, would you say exactly the same thing?
I would absolutely agree.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great that you no longer have to go out networking, you no longer have to place ads, you no longer have to do any of the other kind of strategies you're doing in order to bring business in? Well, that's a great goal. I absolutely encourage you to work towards that. And at a certain point in your business, you may be able to be at that place. Now it's probably going to be a hybrid of that. What we want to do is have you focusing on getting referrals, because whenever you get a referral, that's an endorsement. You're having somebody introduce you to somebody else, and that immediately builds what we call the know, like, and trust factor, because it's come from a trusted source. So it's really key that you build those relationships with those people. So I've challenged my panelists today to come up with a couple of tough questions to ask Coach Kerry, and I'm going to ask Bonnie if you want to ask me the first question first to get us started.
Well, one thing that I've always wondered about is how can I get comfortable asking for referrals?
Great question. Well, the first thing as your coach, what I would do, Bonnie, is I would challenge you on the word comfortable, because sometimes in order for us to do things differently, in order for us to press our advantage, we have to be uncomfortable. So the goal, I would say, is not to find a way to be comfortable. It's finding a way to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in asking for referrals. So what I mean by that is that you know it's going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. You're going to be comfortable in that piece of being uncomfortable, because there's lots of things as a solo entrepreneur you're going to be uncomfortable with. This isn't all about looking for comfort. It's about actually having a successful business. So that's just the start to answer that question. Bonnie, how did you hear that? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It actually makes me look at asking referrals in a different light now.
Great, good. And then the other piece to that is, is how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable about asking for referrals. And the key piece there is that you really want to have a group of people that you have built that know, like, and trust factor with, so that at the end of the day you will feel much better about asking for those referrals. And in fact, it becomes almost self-evident. Now, a couple little tips I'm going to give you here is one of them, Bonnie, if you're working with a client and you're doing all their brand management and all that kind of stuff, you're putting all their collateral materials together and everything else, and the job's done, and then you ask for a referral, I'm going to say that that's not necessarily too late, but not the ideal time to ask for that. I'm going to suggest that right up front, even when you maybe haven't even got them as a client yet, you can set up the expectation that you're going to be asking for referrals, or you would like it that they would recommend you. So I'm going to suggest maybe a semantic change in there. Rather than asking for a referral, asking for an introduction or a recommendation. So Bonnie, how that might look is that when you're meeting with that person for the very first time, maybe the second time in your sales process of maybe having them become a client of yours, you could make a statement something like this. And potential client, here is my goal, and here is my intention, to wow you with the service that I provide, that at the end of us working together, or even during the time we're working together, you're going to feel compelled to recommend me or give me an introduction to someone you know who needs the services that I need. Now, already right up front, then that monkey's out of the cage, right? You've already kind of set that up. And then even during the time when you're working with them, you deliver a great piece of collateral material for them and they really like it. That's when you might say, so, do you know of someone else sort of in a similar situation of you that you have that might actually like to have this piece of work done? So rather than saying, do you know anyone you can refer to me, can you see how you've kind of you've taken a piece of material that you've done, some work that you've done, and you've asked them, do you know anybody in the same situation as you? And that makes it much easier for them to go into that Rolodex that's in their head, and most people don't use Rolodexes anymore, but that database in their head, and be able to filter through and say, oh yeah, I was talking to so-and-so last week, and they were talking about exactly the same thing. So setting it up in the beginning of the relationship that you're going to be talking to them about introductions, looking for opportunities during the time that you're working with them to say, well, do you know anybody who might be interested in having this sort of thing done as well? And then at the end, when you've got a satisfied customer, again, rather than saying, do you have any referrals, make it easier for them, narrow it down for them, and you could say something like this. Well, remember when we first started working together, I talked about that if I provided you great service, that I'd have you maybe think about who might need similar sort of services? Well, we're kind of at that place now. We've just reviewed the kind of service that I've provided for you, and you're very happy with that. Who do you know who is in the similar situation as you? Who do you know who maybe is a startup business? Who do you know is maybe just acquired a new division in their business, and they're going to need some brand work on that? So you can see how you've narrowed it down for them and made it easier for them as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. So it starts with setting expectations, looking for opportunities all along the way, not waiting to the end, because if you wait to the end, it's like you have to get that question out. How am I going to ask that? And that's where it's uncomfortable asking for that when you've kind of been thinking all along, I want to ask that question, but now I got to ask that question. So set yourself up right up front that they're expecting to get that question from you. They're expecting to have that dialogue around introductions. And then and at the end, you want to ask that question with the reference to the fact that you've already mentioned it already. And there's a much greater chance that you're going to get them to say, yeah, you know, I did meet somebody. And then all you can say at that point is, great. You know, if you appreciated how I worked with you, then all I'm looking for is an introduction, and then I can take it from there so they can make their decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Very helpful.
Great, good, good. So one of the pieces in there I think that is really important is that how you have worked with that client will determine their motivation to recommend you to other people. And especially in the early days. And there's a difference between walking people through a proper sales process where you give them the information at the pace that they need it, they make an informed decision, and they start working with you, versus somebody who's pestering them, somebody who's really in their face, somebody who is pushy. And even at the end of the day, if they end up doing business with you, they're probably not going to give you a referral or a recommendation because they don't want to put their trusted list in the hands of someone that they're uncertain how they're going to deal with it. So it's really key. How you deal with them will determine whether they feel comfortable releasing some of those names. So Kathy, off to your question now.
Okay, well, I'm actually pretty comfortable asking for referrals, probably thanks to you, Kerry. But one thing that I would like to ask is, you know, I don't always get referrals, and I'm wondering, you know, people seem a bit hesitant sometimes about doing that. So maybe it's the way I'm asking, or, you know, what would you give me for feedback on that?
Great. And that's a great question, and often that happens. And that can come from a couple of different reasons. I've alluded to a couple of them already, but I'm going to expand a little further on that. The first one is that when we ask for a referral, that's asking people to sort of think of something that's quite large, actually, in their heads. So how do they, well, gee, a referral for, oh, okay, what is it? So the more specific that you ask, and again, I'm going to ask you to change that language to an introduction, and maybe even say, so who do you know who might be interested? You know, what other girlfriends do you know who might be interested in doing some travel? So you see, that makes it easier. So it's not their entire list. Now it's girlfriends who like to travel. So that's helped narrow it down for them. So you've made it easy for them to be thinking in their head of who else might be. You might even say, who else do you know who might be that you'd love to actually have travel with you? So you see how that makes it easier? It's even narrowing it down. There may be just one or two people. And the idea is we're not looking for a whole bunch of referrals. What we're looking for is a key introduction to someone. So that's one thing, is asking it in that way to help them narrow it down. And understand there's a premise behind often why people are hesitant. And it's because that list of theirs, they hold very dear to them. They've cultivated it, they've nurtured it, it's very important. They've built a trust relationship with them, between each other. And for them to let go of a name off that list is really a tough one. So sometimes what you can do, depending upon what business the person happens to be in, is you could say to me, you know, keep your best ones, like I don't want to know your best ones. You know, your best referrals or your best introductions. But who would you at least feel comfortable making an introduction? And what that does, in a way, it kind of has them go, oh, phew. Well, she's not looking for my best contacts or my best relationships I've got, just someone to make that introduction. So you can sometimes help them release at least a name that's there. And I think, too, is always look at building your know, like, and trust factor with them. Because I believe at the end of the day, we were likely to not even have to ask for referrals. We will get them if we've built that relationship with those people. We continue to provide value for them. There's important dialogue back and forth, so we stay top of mind for them. And throwing out questions like, oh, it'd be great if you could bring some girlfriends along, or who do you know who might? that's the way that ultimately they will become your raving fans, and you won't even have to ask for those. So that hesitancy, Kathy, often comes from a couple of things. One of them is it's too big a question, so you want to narrow it down. Or the reason is that that relationship that you have with them isn't quite at that stage yet where they're ready to give their closest contacts to you. So sometimes you can just, relieve or, make it easy for them and say, and don't give me your best girlfriends, but who else do you know that maybe you might work with? Who else do you know that maybe that you've networked with that that likes to travel, something like that. Was that helpful, Kathy?
It's great, thank you. Yeah, I really like the introduction versus referral. Great,
good. And remember, the goal is for you to be the connector, for you to be the one. So, for example, if you go to your networking events, one of the other ways for you to get those referrals is for you to actually be giving referrals. Be the giver first. So, for example, you go to a networking event and you are introducing yourself to people, and again, go to episode 15 and you'll get more tips on it there. But you go to, you go to your networking event and you're finding out what people need. What I'm going to challenge you to do is to think in your Rolodex, who do you know? Who do you know that person needs to know? And be the connector. That if you, to almost every single person that you meet, if you can connect them with someone, all of a sudden, where's your credibility right now in their mind? Really high, isn't it? If you've been the one who's connected them already, I mean, think about it. Reverse it. You go to a networking event or you go somewhere and you get an email the next day with somebody saying a virtual introduction. And it says, based on what we were talking about yesterday and the kind of things that you were looking for, whatever, I wanted to introduce you to so-and-so because I think the two of you should connect. Got no idea where it's going to go, but just, get to know each other. Well, wow. How would you feel about that person? They took the time. First of all, they listened. Second of all, they took the time. So I'm going to recommend, in terms of a time management strategy, that if you're going to networking events on a regular basis, is you set aside time for you to be the connector as well. And even if there's a week when you have not been to a networking event, part of what you should be thinking about is, who in my database can I be connecting with someone else? And be strategic about it. If that's a person who's a connector themselves, and you connect them, you immediately have raised your capital in their minds, because you then, they identify with you. Connector and connector, okay, now we've got something in common. So be the connector, be the one, act as if you are the hostess at your own party, that you're the one introducing people. You wouldn't have guests arrive at your house that don't know each other, and you wouldn't introduce them. You're going to be making sure they get to know each other. Do exactly the same things, and I guarantee you that will create an endless stream of referrals for you, because you're the connector. People are going to be you're going to be top of mind. They're going to be connecting you to people that they need. So at the end of the day, you may not even have to ask for referrals. They're just going to come to you because people like you. They know what you do. They know that you are the connector, and they want to make sure that the people they know you. That the people that they know, they're going to have some value by getting to know you. So why wouldn't they? Because it's going to look good on them. People always want to protect themselves. Understandably, we don't want to put ourselves out there. But if it's going to make them look good or smart or intelligent by saying, you need to meet Kathy or you need to meet Bonnie, aren't they going to want to do that more often? Of course they are, because it's going to look good on them. I think that's a pretty good strategy. Make sure you are the connector, you are the hostess, you're the one who's connecting people, and at the end of the day, people are going to want to send you their contacts and do introductions for you. So remember, use the word introductions versus referrals if you're asking directly. Be the connector. Make sure that you are the one who's asking them what they need, and follow up by making those introductions for them. You're going to wow them with that kind of service. That's going to be Absolutely huge, because at that point in time, it doesn't look like there's anything in it for you. But you've taken the time to make those connections. Good stuff so far, guys?
Great.
Excellent, Kerry.
Good. So I just want to share with you, sort of in closing, a story that I'm going to say a big blunder. So if you're listening to this or watching this episode, stay listening for this next piece, because I don't know if you've ever been in this situation. I got a call a couple of days ago from someone that I didn't know. And she gave me a little bit of information of why she was calling. There was a company that was expanding into my city, and she wanted to talk to me. So I'm courteous. So I returned her phone call. And I found out pretty quickly what her business was, and that it wasn't a fit for me. And I was very polite, and I told her that. And then here's what she said to me. She said, well, I'd still like to get together with you over coffee, because then you'd understand more about what my business is, so that when you come across people, that you'd be able to give me referrals. Now, for those who are listeners and my panelists, how do you think I felt when I heard that? Not likely. First of all, I've told her that I'm busy, and I've told her that it's not a fit for me. What's the likelihood that I'm going to refer someone to something that I personally haven't had a relationship with, haven't had some experience with? I didn't know this person from Adam. She got my name from someone else, and she phoned me out of the blue. And I don't even know the person where they got my name. So there was no even relationship there. And yet she was asking me to take my time to find out about her businesses so that I could give her referrals. No like and trust factor in place, none at all. Pretty assumptive that I'm going to refer people to what she does when I really don't know her at all. I mean, I consider that to be a huge blunder. What I would have encouraged her to do if she was asking for my coaching is, first of all, for any future ones, make sure that the connection between where they got my name and her was one that came through an endorsement, came through an email, because I would have given her a little bit more time as a result of that, because I would have valued that existing relationship that was there. And at the end of the day, I'm only going to give referrals to something that I've actually had experience with myself, that I understand, that I think it would be good for someone else. The odds are meeting her for coffee and finding a little bit about it and still not having any relationship, it was going to be pretty unlikely I was going to give referrals. So it was going to be a waste of her time and a waste of my time. So be the connector. Go watch episode 15 and find out how to effectively network so that you have these relationships that are built on a solid level, that people know, like, and trust you. And then you can start expecting that you're going to get some referrals back if you're giving them those introductions as well. You're picking up the phone, you're introducing people, you're doing it by email, that you're building those connections that are there. You're helping them think about who might be the right fit versus this broad spectrum, who do you know question. Make it easy for them, and I guarantee you use all these little strategies all together and you will end up with an endless stream of referrals. Panelists, any last questions for me, or how about some final comments, if no questions?
I think that was great, Kerry. It really gave me a better way of looking at how to ask for referrals, or better yet, introductions. So
Great.
Thank you for that.
Great.
I would say the same. Thanks. I don't have any more questions, but I definitely I think that using some of these strategies will really help.
Good. Good. So go out and build relationships. Be the connector. Be the person that people think of top of mind, and they will then be referring people to you, making those introductions to you, and you make those introductions back, and you'll get them back. So remember, we have we talk on these episodes all about strategies. So we're going to give you tips and strategies on all different things in order for you to be successful as an entrepreneur. And if you want to watch the live shows, tune in on Google Hangouts at Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Also go to hangoutwithcoachkerry.com for all of our past and episodes and lots of tips and strategies that are there. look forward to hearing you having you on an upcoming episode. And thank you to my panelists. And we'll talk to you all next week. Until then, have an inspired week. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.